and welcome to our program Where God Weeps, a program where we talk about the situation of the suffering and persecuted church around the world. The People's Republic of Bangladesh is a sovereign country in South Asia, a country densely populated with a Muslim majority, and also with Christian, Hindu, and Buddhist communities. In his visit to the country, Pope Francis brought a strong message to promote unity and communion. To know more about the work of the Church in Bangladesh, it is my honor to welcome Father Francis Costa from the Diocese of Dakka. Father Francis, welcome to our program.
Thank you, thank you.
Father, we have prepared a country profile, a video about this wonderful country of yours. Here is a country profile of Bangladesh.
Bangladesh is one of the most densely populated countries on Earth. The Muslim-majority nation is packed into the world's largest river delta, which flows into the Bay of Bengal. Despite suffering floods and widespread poverty, the people of Bangladesh exhibit remarkable resilience and pride. The People's Republic of Bangladesh is located in the eastern part of the ancient region of Bengal. The vast Ganges Delta is formed through the flow of rivers coming down from the Himalayas. Earliest records of civilization date back to the first millennium BC. Initially influenced by Buddhist and Hindu dynasties, the area of Bengal was ultimately dominated by Islam in the 13th century. By the 16th century, the region developed into a wealthy center of trade and industry. Eventually, the British Crown and its East India Company came to dominate this part of the Asian subcontinent. When Hindu India declared independence in 1947, its Muslim population formed one Pakistan divided into West and East. Neglect and domination by the West Pakistani government eventually led to war and a struggle toward autonomy for the East Bengalis. Beginning in March of 1971, the war lasted 9 months, with casualties in the millions and many more displaced. Subsequently, with the help of the Indian Army, Bangladesh gained independence in December 1971. The new state endured further political turmoil and many military coups. With democracy being restored in 1991, relative calm and economic progress has followed. The economy of Bangladesh has performed well, gaining about 6% annually over the last 2 decades and reaching World Bank lower middle income status in 2015. Nearly 2/3 of the workforce is employed in agriculture, with rice the single most important product. Bangladesh produces about 80% of the world's jute, a natural fiber used to make cloth, rope, and bags. Highly prized tea is grown on scenic slopes of the northeast. Most of Bangladesh's export earnings come from the garment industry, which also generates some 20 million low-paying jobs. Nonetheless, Bangladesh remains underdeveloped due to ill governance and corruption. Many industries are primitive by modern standards. Climate and geography also hamper the country's development. Cyclones, flooding, sea level change, and droughts have devastated great parts of the population. Bangladesh is now widely recognized to be one of the countries most vulnerable to climate change. At 162 million, Bangladesh is one of the most densely populated countries in the world. Sunni Muslims account for nearly 90% of the population, making it the third most populous Muslim country after Indonesia and Pakistan. Islam was made the state religion in 1988. The main minority, Hinduism, accounts for a little over 9% of the population. The remaining 0.5% consists of Buddhists and Christians, of which Catholics are the majority. The earliest recorded Catholic presence were the Portuguese missionaries and traders in Porto Grande, Chittagong, where they built the region's first churches during the 16th century. The Jesuits opened their first mission in 1600. In 1852, the Vicariate of Eastern Bengal, with headquarters in Dakka, was entrusted to the newly founded Congregation of the Holy Cross. The Diocese of Dakka was canonically erected in 1886.
Although church is a very small minority, we feel in Bangladesh we have a role to play in development work, but development with a religious dimension. Through Caritas, through other organizations. We have, for example, so many educational institutions. We cannot think one day of becoming a big community here, a Christian community. We'll have to be always salt of the earth.
The majority of Catholics in Bangladesh are people of tribal origin. It is in these indigenous areas that the Church is working to educate, develop, and evangelize. Through its work, the Church hopes to dignify and elevate the lives of these marginalized communities. Unfortunately, in the past years, the rise of fundamentalism has coincided with an increase in violence.
As minorities, the tribal people are often attacked, tortured, received, the lands are grabbed by the majority Muslims especially. From the gospel value, we feel the need of defending these defenseless people and to be with them and to suffer with them.
Welcome back to our program. Today we're talking to Father Francis Costa. He works in one of the parishes of Dakka, the capital of Bangladesh.
Yes.
Father, in this profile that we saw, it's a vast reality. It's different from one part of the country to another. Nevertheless, there are some common, we might call challenges for the church and for the country. Yeah. One of them that it's particularly important is education.
Yes.
What is the church doing specifically in the field of education?
Well, I don't know whether you have our Catholic directory where we have all the statistics of our schools and colleges. In every diocese, we have got 8 dioceses now, and in every diocese we have schools run by the church. And in our schools, mostly the people of other faiths study, because you know that all over Bangladesh, in all 8 dioceses, we have about 500,000 Catholics.
500,000 Catholics
half
in
a
the
million,
country.
yeah, 500,000, yes, 500,000 Catholics. And from my experience, I can say that though we are giving services to the majority who are not Catholics or not Christians, but they really appreciate the way we teach our values, human values, moral values, gospel values to some extent. And especially during admission time in Dakka city, if I would say, people really fight to get admitted to our schools, because the parents especially realize that how the church-run schools have been trying their best to form their children in the light of values, human values, which we really need in today's world.
Father, another very important aspect of education is that it's the key to solve the problem of poverty, which is another big challenge for the country.
Yes, you are right. If I would say that for us Catholics, we are trying to educate our children, first of all, and to tell you that at the moment, among these 500,000 Christian Catholics, 60% would be tribal people. We call them Adivasis. And most of them are also very poor. Many families cannot afford to send their children to school. That is why our bishops are also sometimes facing difficulties to put up new schools, as they also don't have enough funds or enough money. But nonetheless, I would say it is not the school building, but even under the trees sometimes we find that children are there for their class, and teachers are there trying to teach our schools, our students. And you are right that with education things change. This is what we all experience and we all agree. And I hope the way we are trying to help our families to raise their children, not only in terms of faith but in terms of education and other values education, will really help us to have an integral development. What I say is not only economic development but integral development, that faith and then money and our commodities and our necessities of daily lives will be well integrated, so that people can have really a happy life and peaceful life.
And you mentioned the tribal groups. Is the church putting a particular emphasis in the work with the tribal groups?
Among 8 dioceses, I would say 3, 4, 5 dioceses have mostly 80%, 90% tribal people. So by nature of the diocese, our bishops are giving
constituency.
So giving more emphasis in terms of evangelization also, because there are more tribal people where we can really work, bring the good news to them. And bishops have special concern for education, as I said, and also try to help them how they can really stand on their own with the limited sources we have. Just trying a little bit, yes.
And when the church works and in the pastoral work of the church with these groups, is this a primary evangelization?
Yeah, primary.
Is the first time that these people are listening to the good news?
Yes. There are, among the tribal people, some have been evangelized for the last, say, 70, 80 years. But there are also new people who are really listening to the good news for the first time also. So the bishops also need to appoint catechists and new leaders, so that gradually we can take up more villages, more people in the countryside, to help them to be evangelized. And through evangelization, I see our catechists are not only catechize our children, but they are also the teachers who give them classes, the formal education as well.
In the feature report that we saw at the beginning of our program, Father, it mentions the problem with the environment.
Okay.
The impact that climate change has in particularly in the coast. What is this challenge?
Actually, you know, I hear and I read from the newspapers that I think you know that Bangladesh is actually a lowland, and when it rains heavily in India, after 2-3 days or after a week, we have only the water because it is a lowland, and this is
so the natural run
of the water is there.
Yes,
that is why we often get our country gets flooded. You know, this one thing. The other thing is the coastal. There are 3 dioceses now, coastal dioceses. Chittagong has been elevated to an archdiocese. So under with Chittagong, we have this Pastoral, the new diocese, and Khulna. These 3 are coastal dioceses, and the people of these dioceses also are at risk, I would say, as these are very close to the sea and rivers, and they have water, plenty of water, floods, and typhoons, and so they really have difficult times, at least for 5-6 months. The water remain in their localities for about 5-6 months. They can neither produce crops, only fishing is the thing, but you know, people also have quite high risk when they go for fishing because you have storms every now and then. So in terms of climate change, I say that through Caritas, the church is trying to bring, making people aware. So it's a kind of awareness building, first of all. And with the government, the Caritas is also trying to help how to cope with this situation first, and how to really get rid of these bad impacts or effects of climate change to some extent. So this is what the church has been doing. And the other thing is, like for example, when I go back, this 28, I reached there, but we have one national pastoral workshop, we call it, and it happens once in 10 years, more or less in 10 years, where representatives from all dioceses will gather. There will be about 200 people, so all bishops, then priests and religious, lay people, leaders, NGO people, different professionals from education sectors. So we really have a mixed group who can really think together, rethink, reflect, and try to find means and ways how to cope with the situations that we have been challenged with at the moment and in the past, and what will be our future goal settings.
Father, and what other pastoral challenges do you have with your community?
Pastoral challenges in terms of, I would say, like in some areas, if I would mention, like Chittagong Hill Tracts, we are not always allowed to go to the periphery. Our priests who are working there sometimes are having little difficulties, not much, but living difficulties.
But why the limited access?
I don't know, from the part of the government. You know, there was way back in 30 years back, there was some kind of tension between government and the people of those areas. There is a group who would claim or demand for a separate state or something like that. So this is one thing. The other thing is, being a Muslim country, their number is growing. You know, it is very, very normal, and is not a big land, Bangladesh. So all these where the tribal people are settled or living now, there are certain spaces where people would like to go and also have their settlement. So this is one tension. The other thing is that foreigners are not allowed there also to go. They need special permission. The government would like to know why they want to go, who are these people, what is the reason behind things like that. Other challenges would be, you see, our parishes are quite far from the central point, and our routes are also not that good. Priests only have, some of them have, say, motorbike. Others would go by rickshaw. I don't know if you know it, three-wheelers.
Yes.
Some would walk for 5, 7, 10 kilometers, maybe 3, 4, 5 hours they
To
walk.
attend to their communities.
Yeah, to communities, to offer mass or to visit families. So these are really some of the practical challenges that we face. The other thing also I can say that things are changing all over the world, even through media. There are of course positive impacts of media, but also not that all people are getting or learning the good things from the media, and especially in city life where both parents need to work. So it is a challenge for the children also. When the wife and the husband works, what about the children? They go to school and they come home, who will take care of them? So there is a kind of, though it is not that much, but it is coming gradually, I can see. And people are mostly coming to cities from different parts of the country, even Christians, Catholics, because they think if I come to a big city like capital city of Dakka, I will have a kind of work, I will have some money, I can survive, I can treat my families, things like that. This is also would be one of the challenges. The other challenge I see is, even I was talking to the Secretary of the Youth Commission, that in Dakka city we have about, say, more than 5,000 young students. So in a small country like Bangladesh, when you have 5,000 young students, college and university students, this is a big group for us, I say, and this is the future of the church, future of the Catholic community. So how to really help them to be formed? Of course, not only in terms of faith, in terms of gospel values, but also in terms of this reality, present realities, all these difficulties or challenges that everybody is facing.
Father, I'm talking about young people. How are vocations in the country? Vocations to the priesthood and to the consecrated life of
vocations, I would say it is not bad. It's not bad. We have got one major seminary, only one major seminary, and we have about 80 plus diocesan seminarians and religious diocesan. Altogether we have about 120 or 130 this time maybe. We have just started the new year in August 15. So in terms of religious congregations, I can see that nowadays more and more tribal young boys and girls are coming to novitiates or to aspirancy to the seminaries, which is a good sign also, since they are now the majority. Also we need priests and religious from their community also, that they can serve later on. But it is not in all dioceses. In one or two dioceses, they lack priests. And religious as well. But we hope, and bishops are also thinking that how bishops can also encourage, like for example, if this diocese has more seminarians or young people who are willing to give their lives in consecrated life or priestly life, if they can also encourage them to join other dioceses as well in the country, so that together we can grow. This is also a good sign. I can see the good spirit among the bishops as well.
Yes. And Father, what can we do? What can the Universal Church do for the Church of Bangladesh?
Well, first of all, I would say we believe that Universal Church is praying for us, supporting us in many different ways. As we have already talked, we are not hopeless, but we still need time to come up with what we have with the natural or local resources we have. We would still need some financial assistance to some tribal dioceses, especially to put up our schools. As I said, even the salary we give to the catechists also is very low. Very low. It is just they can only raise their children. They live nothing extra actually. Anyway, but they are very faithful in their work. So Universal Church can do that, of course, and especially our support. We feel that we are one with the Universal Church, and this is our
Talking
strength.
about communion.
Talking about communion. This is our strength, that we are not left alone, we are not separated, as we are one in mind and spirit. Somehow God is there to help us in our difficult situations. This is personally I believe, and I think this is also what the bishops also see and say, because they come to the center where I stay, they share their difficulties, and I can sense it a little bit, the struggles they are going through in terms of running a diocese financially, and in terms of other challenges that they face.
Father, thank you
Yes.
so much for being with us today.
Thank you too.
And thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for being with us in another program of Where God Weeps. If you want to know more about the work that the Church is doing in Bangladesh, we encourage you to contact the information at the end of this program. Thank you, and God bless.